Some cameras have the benefit of a unique culture behind them and rich histories like Atten, Panavision, and Arri. And then there are some companies that completely boggle the mind. That was the case with Cinemartin's absolutely bizarre Fran 8K camera campaign, filled with questionable marketing techniques, social media wars with Philip Bloom, and a camera that never quite saw the light of day. But what happened to this strange camera that ran Windows 10? And was this camera abandoned, or was it simply a scam? Find out on today's Abandoned Camera series. Cinemartin is a fascinating company as while you can find plenty of articles online about their demise and some of their products, it's a bit harder to find the actual history of Cinemartin and the people involved in the company beyond its eccentric co-founder and developer manager Alejandro Martin, who, as they said on their website, was a software developer and had worked in the industry and won awards before eventually owning a taxi company and being a taxi driver in Barcelona, Spain. Beyond this, I did not find much else in his past career or the ties that connected him to making cinema gear before starting Cinemartin. Also, much of their video footage and photos have been removed from the internet, with only some videos remaining on Facebook pages and other areas of the internet on YouTube, which we will take a look at later on. It seems that the company was started back in 2010 in Barcelona, as that's the first instance of a website that was captured on the way back machine that we could find. If you look at cinemartin.com right now, it takes you to one of those spam pages that you often find on recently defunct websites. Throughout the years until they declared bankruptcy, they never explained on their website who they were, only saying in their About section that they were a team currently building affordable cine devices, and that they were a collective of video and cine enthusiasts and hardware and software developers. One of their first products was the Cinemartin SFV, which they claimed was the world's first portable video computer. These were essentially compact field recorders that would work with the Sony F3 that was hitting the market around the same time. Though, through the years, they would become known as a small company that made relatively modestly priced camera accessories, a denoiser application, live streaming solutions, and a motorized slider. Think almost like a small HD or a company equivalent to that. Though they were accused at times of only repackaging some of their monitors from other distributors and selling them as their own products, which when it comes to some of these smaller companies that dabble in this space, it can actually be quite hard to tell where a lot of the products came from exactly and if they were actually developed by the company that's selling them. But for Cinemartin, I didn't really come across any concrete evidence that they were doing this at this time, but with a little information, you just never know. But despite all this limited backstory on the company itself, no one could have predicted that they would try to develop and release their own camera. And on May 8th, 2018, when they announced that they were making this camera with a couple of prototype drawings, no one really thought that they'd actually ever get to see this camera in real life. But later on that year, Cinemartin would launch the Fran 8K with video examples and more in what probably wins the award for the strangest product launch video ever made.
Hello, I'm Alessandro, and I'm going to introduce you in show Fran, a digital cinema programmable camera featuring an 8K 4/3 sensor with up to 7920 by 6024 native resolution.
Many lambasted them for this video, with Matthew Allard from Newsshooter saying, "The introduction video is nothing short of terrible and is hardly a glowing endorsement for the camera. From the bad audio to the horrible music choice, it's definitely not the right way to get customers interested in your product." Cinemartin's marketing was strange indeed, also having somewhat of an ill-advised naming convention for their different camera models: the Fran LT, the Fran Plus, and lastly, the Fran STD. Yes, you heard that right.
Let me show you a few samples, and then let me introduce you the different models of the Fran family. Let's get started.
Despite receiving a lot of backlash for their announcement video and turning the comments off on YouTube for this, some in the community were willing to give them a shot, still noting how hard it is actually to develop a camera. And you know, just because you make cameras, it doesn't automatically make you a professional cinematographer, so some surmised. So let's talk about the actual specifications for the Fran 8K. In the release, they announced that the camera would cost around $13,600, but if you pre-ordered with a 10% deposit, they did a special price of $9,000 for the camera, which, let's just say, I'm not sure that anyone who actually put a deposit down on this camera got their deposits back, as there's a lot of comments on their Facebook page demanding it back when all of this went south for Cinemartin. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. This camera came with an 8K sensor that was said to be larger than full frame and larger than VistaVision. They claimed it was the world's largest commercially sold sensor, which was said to be a 37 by 27 millimeter sensor, which in total area was 999 millimeters. Though the Arri Alexa 65 has a sensor size of, 1384 millimeters. So world's largest sensor? Though as to the purpose of why the sensor needed to be so massive, it wasn't really explained in their marketing. It recorded 444 RAW in what I'm assuming is CDNG files or something equivalent to that, as they claim to be able to produce pure RAW files, Bayered RAW files, or de-Bayered RAW files, which if they actually came out with any of this, I'm sure we would be seeing some sort of legal action from the lawsuit-hungry Red Digital Cinema legal team if this was internal recording. Also touted in this camera was dual native ISO, a global shutter, a 15.5 stops of dynamic range, solid-state drive recording options, and, as they say, pleasing skin tones was a feature they wanted to really note in their marketing. All in all, paired with the interesting intro video, it was a weirdly interesting camera coming from an unknown company.
Fran Plus, with a chassis made on fluorocarbon and the ability for users to program the camera as for any particular needs.
Around this time, Cinemartin would send out cameras to get reviewed by several different prominent industry news sites and famously Philip Bloom. But the Philip Bloom Cinemartin drama comes later on in the story, so stick around for that. Cinemartin would go on to release multiple videos showing off the specs of the camera and the footage, as well as continuing their fascinating marketing videos up against a white wall.
Hello, I will show you in this video how to power on Fran. Just to start, simply click the power on button. In a few seconds the screen will light, and now it will take less than half a minute to power on.
But only 4 months after they released this camera for pre-sale, Cinemartin would release this statement on their Facebook page. Bad news, we're about to close due to bankruptcy. Our tier mother company left us with no other option. End of Cinemartin probably by April 1st, the joke day, but our end is a filmmaking company. Thank you for all your efforts and gratitude. Soon we will be making a public announcement. They would go on to make a bit of a memorial on their website as their final announcement, which gives the first brief history we actually see about Cinemartin and about themselves and where they all were headed professionally after this. Again, mentioning at the top of the statement that their tier mother company left them no option but to close down. I think we can speculate a bit here and realize they probably had to get some outside funding to be able to develop a camera, which camera development is not cheap. So while we can't confirm this, more than likely they were able to secure funding for the Fran 8K outside of the company, but ran into some funding problems when it came time to manufacture the cameras, leading the company or person investing them to pull the plug. It's that or this whole thing was a complete scam, as you can still read through many comments on their Facebook page from people who never received other Cinemartin products they ordered and never got refunds. And in typical Cinemartin fashion, the goodbye letter on their website left us with a couple more quirky statements like this one. The company would close soon after, but that's not the end of the story. The day after Cinemartin released their closing statement on Facebook, Philip Bloom posted this infamous review of the Fran 8K.
Okay, so let's have a look at it. The packaging, this is obviously not what it comes in. It's ropey as be sending a camera like this in a Pelican case or something. And here's the main thing. This Oh my God, it's a beast.
We've included the link to this video in the description below. Philip Bloom was not planning on releasing this video, opting instead to wait for Cinemartin to fix this camera up a bit before he did a real review on it. And that's mostly because he couldn't get the camera to function properly and film anything at all with it, due to a faulty cable, it would seem.
So apparently it's recording. This is the worst UI I've ever seen in my life.
In this video, we get our only real look at the camera beyond Cinemartin's marketing videos and photos. Interestingly enough, the camera was running Windows 10 as its operating system that you would control through an external monitor. And you could actually plug up a mouse to the camera.
So I'm just going to message the guy because this has got an error message on there. Can I connect a mouse?
And while this may seem like a weird choice to have installed in a camera, because it was still early in development, which they were about to ship out, so technically it really wasn't early in development, but typically in early development for cameras, it's not unusual for a camera to have an operating system like this until they fully develop the interface for it and finish testing and tweaking it. But it's still a funny sight to see in this video by Philip Bloom. Needless to say, he does not hold back in his critique of this camera and about the packaging they sent it in. After this video was released, the good people over at Cinemartin were not very happy with the video, posting their own comeback video on March 21st, 2019 called Fran 8K Cam Review by Philip Bloom Cables Not Okay at All.
Hello guys, I'm Alejandro. I'm here with my workmate Manuel. Just received the camera back from Philip Bloom. Manuel, please connect the camera. Effectively, the cable is not working at all. It works, but it seems that the cable was a little bit fault. So, for me to show you that camera is working, but again, the only issue was the cable, which I will show you in a few moments. Vale, what happened with Bloom? Probably he didn't connect very well the cables, but of course the cables are a little trouble. You see the camera has just been restarted. So effectively the cable was not in a correct, this is why Philip Bloom were not able to do this. We will make a new 2 cables and we'll try to send him back the camera again. Thank you for watching this video. Bye.
Philip Bloom replied to this video saying, "Sorry mate, but this is nonsense. What you have shown me is what I was able to do. I could not get an image as my video showed. My main issue was Windows kept crashing, but there were loads of other issues which I listed in the review." Through multiple comments, Alejandro Martin fired back at Philip Bloom saying, "I told you, but you didn't listen to me. The camera has 2 power ins, and if the power to the input fails, the sensor fails, then comes the error you got. Tomorrow I will show you on another video." Also responding to other commenters, Alejandro said that Bloom seems to have no interest in reviewing the camera again, and he only spent 20 minutes with me on the phone when he got a non-working unit. Philip Bloom responded quickly saying, "Okay, this is ridiculous. You made a video with my name in the title, showing me the Fran working, blaming the power cable, but nowhere in this video do you show anyone anything that I was not able to achieve in this video. Are you guys bankrupt or what? Because you're not acting like it right now. And I did listen to you after I returned the camera. I don't get what you're doing here. If you really want the camera to succeed, then stop posting nonsense like this video and stop lashing out at people's comments. The camera needs a huge amount of work. Come back when it's something that can be used on a professional production. It seems to me it is a couple years away, if not more." Several more comments from Alejandro seem to be more excuses as to why the camera didn't work, or that they didn't have enough of a budget for marketing for the camera to be successful. And there seemed to be at one point an agreement between Philip Bloom and Alejandro to do another camera review with a working camera, but that never materialized. We will mention just one final twist on this fascinating back and forth between this small company and an industry respected Philip Bloom. On Cinemartin's Facebook page, they had also posted a link to this video, which Philip Bloom posed an interesting question in the comments about their status in bankruptcy, saying, "I held back immensely in my review in the hope that in time you could fix things with this camera. The tone of your posts and in the comments implies that the camera is in a closed to shipping state. That of course is a joke. The other big question, of course, why are you continuing this if your company is declaring bankruptcy? Isn't the Fran project an asset to go to the creditors? You're confusing a lot of people, but I do genuinely hope everything works out for you." This does raise an interesting question when it comes to the legitimacy of this company, as it's true if they were going through an actual bankruptcy or being sold off that most of the assets would have been seized. So were they taking a risk by continuing to use this camera well after they had technically shut down, as they continued to make some videos with the camera for a little while after this? Or was it maybe pointing to something else, like it being a scam and that they weren't actually going bankrupt? Hard to tell, especially with not being able to find financial details about this company. But as Philip Bloom said in one of the comments, what I see from this is your refusal to take any responsibility. You blame me for the camera not working, the same as you blame people who got non-functioning monitors. There's a strong pattern here, with a strong pattern toward blame and other strange behaviors from this company. And while no one can confirm this was a scam, Cinemartin made it pretty easy for a lot of people to believe it was. So with all this drama and all this, you kind of have this camera in the middle of it. What happened to this camera? It's fairly obvious it was abandoned, or at least a complete scam in some sense. In all of our abandoned camera series, this camera probably got abandoned the fastest and likely does not exist in any sense at this point. Unless, of course, others at Cinemartin or Alejandro Martin were able to hang on to this camera through bankruptcy, which would lead to some other interesting questions. At the end of the day, there is something to be said about marketing your product well and business professionalism. The fighting and comebacks against Philip Bloom by Cinemartin, someone who many trust for camera reviews, was not what you want to see from a company making equipment you need to function right for your livelihood. When a company goes out of its way to excuse and put blame and post videos about a potential customer for not being able to use their product, it's a massive red flag. And it's not surprising in the end that this camera never came to be. And as Philip Bloom said in his video, there's a lot more to a camera than just the image. If you guys like this video, be sure to check out our other abandoned camera videos, including this one about the most expensive digital cinema camera ever made, the Sony F35.